The unintended champion. The Vazrathi central hub gleamed like a malevolent jewel against the darkness of space, its crystalline spires twisting upward from the massive asteroid that served as its foundation. Mara Reeves pressed her forehead against the viewport in the maintenance tunnel, watching the comings and goings of Imperial ships with weary eyes. 6 months stranded on this station had taught her much about survival in enemy territory, but nothing about getting home. "Move it, human," growled a voice behind her. A Drazic maintenance worker, skin the texture of weathered leather and eyes like burning coals, prodded her with a shock stick. "Ventilation filters in Sector 7 won't clean themselves." Mara nodded, keeping her eyes down. "Yes, Overseer Gruss." Her calloused hands, once accustomed to the delicate circuitry of Earth's orbital platforms, now ached from constant menial labor. The Vazrathi Empire had little use for a human engineer except as another body for the most undesirable tasks. Being the only human in this sector of space made her a curiosity, but not one valuable enough to ransom or trade. As she made her way through the labyrinthine service tunnels, alarms began to blare throughout the station. The maintenance comm system crackled to life. "All workers to designated holding areas. The honor circle commences in 1 standard hour." Mara's stomach twisted. The honor circle, a ritual combat where the Vazrathi settled disputes, punished criminals, or simply entertained themselves with blood sport. Attendance was mandatory for all station inhabitants. The Empire believed witnessing justice served would reinforce proper behavior among the lower castes. The main concourse was already filling with spectators when Mara arrived. She kept to the shadows, trying to blend in despite being the only pink-skinned, round-eared being in a sea of aliens. The circular arena in the center of the concourse had been cleared, its translucent floor illuminated from below to highlight the combat for all to see. Imperial guards, distinguished by their crimson armor and ceremonial vibroblades, took position around the circle. The crowd hushed as High Commander Vexthor, his scaled face bearing the gold markings of imperial nobility, stepped onto a hovering platform. "Today we witness the judgment of the Empire upon those who would challenge our sacred laws," his voice boomed across the concourse. "Let their punishment serve as education." 6 prisoners were marched into the arena, shackles binding their wrists. 5 were hardened criminals by the look of them. A Cyrillian smuggler, 2 cracked mercenaries, a Volith assassin, and a disgraced Vazrathi officer. But the 6th, Mara inhaled sharply. The 6th was barely more than a child. A young Vazrathi female, her scales still bearing the blue-green iridescence of adolescence. Unlike the other prisoners, she stood tall, her delicate chin raised in defiance, despite the fear evident in her wide amber eyes. "Thelavex, daughter of the traitor Mekvex," announced the High Commander. "Guilty of sedition and carrying the tainted blood of rebellion. The Emperor has graciously commuted the sentence of immediate execution to trial by combat." The crowd roared its approval of the Emperor's mercy. Mara felt sick. "Choose your weapons," commanded Vexthor. Guards presented an array of combat implements to the prisoners. The hardened criminals selected with practiced eyes. The smuggler a pair of curved daggers, the mercenaries heavy maces, the assassin a serrated whip, the disgraced officer a traditional vibroblade. When they reached the girl, Thela, she hesitated before reluctantly taking a light staff with bladed ends, traditional Vazrathi weapon that required years of training to master. Mara could see immediately that the girl had little experience with it. Her grip was wrong, her stance uncertain. "Combatants will face the Emperor's champions," Vexthor announced. "Victory grants clemency. Defeat brings justice." From the opposite side of the arena, 6 warriors entered. Each wore the distinctive black armor of the Emperor's personal guard. Each carried weapons of the finest quality. This wasn't justice. It was execution disguised as sport. The combat began with brutal efficiency. The smuggler fell first, his daggers no match for his opponent's reach. The mercenaries lasted longer but eventually succumbed to precision strikes. The assassin managed to wound her opponent before a blade found her heart. The disgraced officer fought with honor, but was overwhelmed by superior skill. Then came Thila's turn. Her opponent, a massive Vazrathi male with battle scars crisscrossing his scales, approached lazily, toying with her. The girl circled, keeping her distance, staff held before her in trembling hands. The warrior lunged. Thila attempted to parry but was knocked backward, her staff nearly falling from her grasp. She recovered, barely avoiding the next strike. Blood, vivid blue against her scales, trickled from a cut on her shoulder. "She's just a kid," Mara whispered, hands clenching into fists at her sides. The warrior struck again, this time connecting solidly with Thila's midsection. The girl doubled over, but managed to keep her feet. Her next defensive move was better. She was learning, adapting. But Mara could see the inevitable outcome. The warrior was toying with her, prolonging the spectacle for the crowd's entertainment. After a particularly vicious blow, Thila stumbled, and her staff cracked against the arena floor. The sound of splintering weaponry echoed through the suddenly hushed concourse. The broken staff now ended in a jagged point, the sacred metal of the Vazrathi catching the light. "Finish this," ordered Vexthor, apparently bored with the display. The warrior raised his weapon for the killing blow. Thila, weaponless now that her staff had broken, closed her eyes. Something in Mara snapped. Perhaps it was 6 months of helpless rage, or perhaps simply human decency that would not allow her to watch a child die for entertainment. Before she fully registered her own movement, Mara had vaulted the barrier and was sprinting across the arena floor. "Stop!" she shouted, sliding to her knees beside the fallen girl. Her hands closed around the broken staff, raising it defiantly toward the approaching warrior. The entire concourse fell silent. Even the warrior froze mid-stride, his expression one of shock rather than anger. Mara's heart thundered in her chest, adrenaline surging through her veins, but she didn't lower the broken weapon. "This is not right," she said, voice carrying in the silence. "She's a child." The warrior took a step back, looking toward Vexthor with what appeared to be confusion rather than the rage Mara expected. The High Commander's face had gone ashen, his eyes wide with disbelief. "The human has taken up the broken staff," he said, his voice having lost its bombastic quality. "The Caliph has been invoked." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a mixture of shock, outrage, and what sounded oddly like awe. The guards who had started to move toward Mara halted at Vexthor's gesture. "What's happening?" Mara whispered to Thila, not taking her eyes off the warrior before them. Thila's amber eyes were wide. You've invoked the Caliph, the weapon bond. It's our most sacred law. By taking up my broken weapon in my defense, you've bound your fate to mine. It hasn't been invoked in generations." Vexthor had recovered enough to address the stunned audience. "The ritual combat is suspended. By the ancient laws that even the Emperor must honor, the human and Thilavex are now bound in Caliph. They will be taken to the Temple of Ancestors for the ceremony of recognition." Guards surrounded them, but their demeanor had changed. They no longer approached as executioners, but as some sort of honor guard, their weapons pointed outward rather than at Mara and Thila. As they were escorted from the arena, Mara still clutching the broken staff, Thila whispered, "Do you realize what you've done? In the eyes of my people, you are now my sworn defender, and I am bound to your fate as you are to mine. The law is older than the Empire itself, and it may have just saved both our lives." Mara glanced down at the broken weapon in her hands, its jagged edge catching the light. "I just couldn't watch them kill you," she said simply. "Then perhaps your human compassion is stronger than our ancient traditions," Thila replied, a flicker of hope in her amber eyes. "And that, Mara of Earth, may change everything." As they were led away from the arena, whispers followed them. The human who had invoked the Caliph, the blue-scaled daughter of a traitor, bound together by an ancient law neither fully understood, but which had, for the moment at least, stayed the hand of the executioner. Mara didn't know what awaited them, But one thing was certain. Her life in the Vazrathi Empire had just become infinitely more complicated. Bound by ancient law, the Temple of Ancestors resembled the skeleton of some vast, ancient creature. Crystalline arches soared overhead, their translucent surfaces etched with the history of the Vazrathi people. Mara and Thela stood at its center, still surrounded by guards, as robed priests approached with ceremonial slowness. "What happens now?" Mara whispered. "The recognition ceremony. They'll formalize the bond between us." Thela's voice was steady, but Mara noticed her hands trembling. "After that, I don't know. The Caliphate hasn't been invoked in living memory." The head priest, his scales faded to pale ivory with age, approached them. In his gnarled hands, he carried an ornate box. "Present the broken weapon," he intoned. Mara hesitantly held out the splintered staff. The priest took it reverently, placing it within the box. "The weapon will be preserved in the temple archives, eternal proof of the bond formed this day." He turned to Mara, ancient eyes studying her with undisguised curiosity. "You are not of our people. Do you understand the gravity of what you have done?" "Not entirely," Mara admitted. "I just knew I couldn't let her die." The priest nodded slowly. "Intention matters not. The law is absolute. From this moment forward, your fates are intertwined. Her battles are yours. Your victories are hers. Should one perish, the other is bound to carry on their purpose." He extracted a small ceremonial blade from his robes. "Blood of the defender, blood of the defended. Let them mingle as your destinies now do." Before Mara could object, the priest had nicked her palm, then Thela's, pressing their hands together. Their blood, red meeting blue, mixed between their palms. "What is given freely cannot be taken back," the priest intoned. "The Caliphate is sealed." A tingling sensation spread from Mara's palm up her arm, not painful, but distinctly alien. Thela gasped, suggesting she felt it too. "It is done," the priest announced, stepping back. "The temple recognizes the bond." High Commander Vexthor, who had been watching from the shadows, stepped forward. "A fascinating development," he said, voice silky with dangerous interest. "The Emperor will want to examine this unusual pairing personally. Guards, escort them to." The temple's massive doors burst open. A squad of soldiers in unfamiliar armor rushed in, their weapons trained on the Imperial Guards. "Nobody move," shouted their leader, a scared Vazrathi male with mismatched eyes. "One amber, one cybernetic red. Resistance forces, we're taking the girl and the human." Chaos erupted. Energy weapons discharged, filling the temple with acrid smoke and the scent of ozone. Mara instinctively pulled Thela behind a pillar as the two forces clashed. "Friends of yours?" Mara asked, ducking as a stray blast chipped the pillar above them. "My father's people," Thela replied, eyes wide. "The Resistance. They must have had operatives in the station." She grabbed Mara's wrist. "This way. There's a passage behind the altar. The priests use it for private meditation." They crept along the temple's edge, using the smoke and confusion as cover. Behind the ornate altar, Thela pressed a specific sequence of decorative symbols, revealing a narrow doorway. "Quickly," urged the resistance leader, spotting their movement. He provided covering fire as they slipped into the passage, following close behind as the panel sealed shut behind them. The tunnel was pitch black until the leader activated a light on his armor. "Thilavex, daughter of Mekvex," he said formally, touching his forehead in respect. "I am Captain Krov. Your father sent us to extract you after we received word of your capture. We didn't expect complications." His cybernetic eye focused on Mara with mechanical precision. "This is Mara," Thela said. "She's invoked the Caliphate to save me from execution." Krov's organic eye widened. "The ancient bond. That changes our parameters." He tapped his communicator. "Target secured, plus one additional. Human female, bound by Caliphate." He listened to the response, then nodded. "Understood." proceeding to extraction point. They moved swiftly through the passage, emerging in a lower maintenance level of the station, familiar territory to Mara. "The emergency shuttles are 3 levels down," she volunteered. "I can guide us through the service tunnels to avoid security checkpoints." Krov nodded curtly. "Lead on, human." As they navigated the labyrinthine tunnels, alarms blared throughout the station. The Imperial forces had recovered from the surprise attack and were now hunting them. "My father," Thela said to Krov as they hurried along. "Is he alive and leading the resistance from our hidden base?" Krov confirmed. "He never believed the reports of your death when your transport was captured. He's been planning your rescue for months." Relief flooded Thela's features. "And my brothers, both serving with distinction in the Resistance fleet." They reached a maintenance shaft that would take them directly to the shuttle bay. As they prepared to descend, heavy footsteps approached from a connecting corridor. "Imperial troops," Krov whispered, raising his weapon. Mara held up her hand. "Wait, let me try something." She stepped into view of the approaching patrol. "Help! Intruders in Sector 7. She called out, mimicking panic. "They've taken hostages." The patrol leader hesitated. "Identify yourself." "Maintenance worker Mara Reeves, human." "Please hurry." They went toward the reactor core. The patrol conferred briefly, then hurried in the direction Mara had indicated. As their footsteps faded, she rejoined the others. "Quick thinking," Krov acknowledged grudgingly. "Down the shaft. Now." They descended rapidly, emerging in a service corridor adjacent to the shuttle bay. Through a small viewport, they could see the emergency vessels, small, fast ships designed for evacuation. "Security will be heavy," Krov said, checking his weapon charge. "The moment we enter the bay, we'll have minutes at most before we're overwhelmed." "There's another way," Mara said. "The waste disposal system. The shuttles are serviced through an underside access port for removing hazardous materials. We can enter through there and bypass the main bay entirely." Krov looked skeptical. "And you know this how?" "I spent 6 months cleaning those shuttles," Mara replied dryly. "I know every access panel and maintenance hatch on this station." The waste disposal system was cramped and foul-smelling, but it brought them directly beneath the shuttle bay. Mara led them to a specific access hatch, keying in a maintenance code. "It won't trigger alarms?" Thela asked. "Not if we enter using scheduled maintenance protocols," Mara explained. "The system will log it as routine servicing." The hatch opened onto the underside of a shuttle. Mara quickly located the service port and guided them inside. Within minutes, they had accessed the main cabin. "I'm impressed, human," Krov said as he took the pilot's seat. "Perhaps there's more to your species than the Imperial reports suggest." "We're resourceful," Mara replied, helping Thela secure herself in a passenger seat. As Krov initiated launch sequences, the shuttle's comm system crackled. "Unauthorized launch detected in Bay 7. Power down immediately, or we will open fire." "Strap in," Krov ordered, engaging thrusters. The shuttle lurched forward, crashing through the magnetic containment field rather than waiting for proper bay door opening procedures. Alarms shrieked as atmosphere vented briefly into space before emergency protocols sealed the breach. "Imperial fighters incoming," Krov announced grimly as they accelerated away from the station. "Hold tight. This will get rough." The shuttle banked sharply as the first volley of Imperial fire streaked past them. Thela gripped Mara's hand, their palms pressing together where the priest had cut them. That strange, tingling sensation returned, stronger now. "Your hand," Thela gasped, staring at their joined palms. A faint glow emanated from between their fingers. "What's happening?" Mara asked, alarmed but unable to pull away. "The bond," Thela whispered. "It's adapting." The shuttle rocked as a glancing hit connected with their shields. Krov cursed, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that strained the small vessel's capabilities. Picking up energy readings from the passenger cabin, he called back. "What's going on back there?" The glow between Mara and Thila's hands intensified, spreading up their arms. Myra felt a strange doubling of her senses. She could somehow feel the shuttle systems, as if they were extensions of her own body. "I can see the shield harmonics," she said in wonder. "They're misaligned. If we adjust the resonance frequency by 0.3 microhertz." Her free hand moved to the nearest control panel, fingers dancing across the interface with instinctive certainty. The shields shimmered, then strengthened visibly. "How did you do that?" Krav demanded as another Imperial shot dissipated harmlessly against their newly reinforced shields. "I don't know," Mara admitted, staring at her hand. "I just knew." "The Caliph," Phyllis said, eyes wide with realization. "The old stories say it doesn't just bind fates. It sometimes shares strengths. My family has always had an affinity for energy systems. You must be accessing that through our bond. Whatever it is, keep doing it." Krav ordered as more Imperial fighters appeared on their sensors. "We've got company." The pursuit was relentless, but with Mara's inexplicable new insights into the shuttle systems, they managed to stay ahead of their pursuers. After a harrowing chase through an asteroid field that damaged 2 of the Imperial fighters and convinced the others to fall back, they finally reached clear space. "Preparing for hyperspace jump," Krav announced, plotting coordinates. "Destination: Resistance Base Epsilon." As the stars stretched and blurred around them, Thyla finally released Mara's hand. The glow faded, but the connection between them remained, a subtle awareness of each other that hadn't existed before. "You saved my life twice today," Thyla said quietly. "Once in the arena, and again with the shields." "And your people saved mine by extracting us both," Mara replied. "I'd call us even." Thyla shook her head. "The Caliph doesn't work that way. Debts aren't counted or repaid. The bond simply exists." She hesitated. "There's much about me you don't know, Mara of Earth. Things that might make you regret taking up my broken staff." "Like what?" "Like who my father really is, and what the Resistance is fighting for." Thyla's amber eyes held a mixture of pride and apprehension. "My father isn't just any rebel. He's Mekvex, former High General of the Imperial Fleet, now leader of the largest resistance movement in the Empire's history, and I'm his heir." Mara absorbed this revelation slowly. "So I'm not just bound to a fugitive. I'm bound to a revolution." "Yes," Thyla confirmed, watching Mara carefully. "By the ancient law that even the Emperor must respect, you're now inextricably tied to our cause. For better or worse, your fate is now linked with the destiny of the Vazrethi people." Mara looked out at the streaking stars, Earth impossibly distant now, her old life seemingly belonging to another person entirely. "Well," she said finally, "I always did want my life to have meaning." A ghost of a smile touched Thyla's scaled face. "Be careful what you wish for, human. The meaning you find might not be what you expected." As the shuttle hurtled through hyperspace toward an uncertain future, Mara contemplated the strange twist of fate that had transformed her from forgotten maintenance worker to bound defender of a revolution's heir. Perhaps, she thought, this was why she had been stranded in this corner of the galaxy, not as punishment, but as preparation. Whatever awaited them at Resistance Base Epsilon, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The underground resistance. Resistance Base Epsilon wasn't what Mara expected. Rather than a hidden fortress bristling with weapons, it was a sprawling settlement tunneled into the heart of a dormant volcano on a seemingly uninhabited moon. The caverns teemed with life, not just Vazrethi rebels, but refugees from dozens of species conquered or oppressed by the Empire. "We call it Haven," Thyla explained as they disembarked from the shuttle. "It's one of 7 major resistance strongholds scattered throughout the outer systems." Krav led them through the main cavern, where market stalls, medical facilities, and communal kitchens served the diverse population. Children of various species played together in designated areas, supervised by adults who watched the newcomers with cautious curiosity. "This isn't what Imperial propaganda describes," Mara observed. They paint the resistance as bloodthirsty terrorists. Not this. The Empire excels at distorting truth, Thela replied. They claim to bring order and prosperity, but deliver only subjugation and exploitation. We're fighting for something else, a coalition where all species govern themselves while cooperating for mutual benefit. They approached a large chamber carved from the living rock, its entrance flanked by guards who straightened to attention at the sight of Thela. Inside, a group of diverse beings surrounded a holographic display showing star systems and fleet movements. At their entrance, all eyes turned to them. A tall Vazrathi male with scales the same blue-green as Thela stepped forward, amber eyes widening in disbelief. "Thela," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Father," Thela responded, suddenly looking very young. Mekvex, the legendary resistance leader, crossed the room in 3 long strides and embraced his daughter. His battle-scarred face displayed a vulnerability that belied his fearsome reputation. "When they sentenced you to the arena," he said hoarsely, "I thought, I'm alive because of her." Thela interrupted, turning to Mara. "She invoked the Calic Fifth to save me." Mekvex released his daughter and regarded Mara with new intensity. "A human," he said, surprise evident. "I didn't think your kind knew of our ancient ways." "I didn't," Mara admitted. "I just saw someone who needed help." The resistance leader studied her for a long moment, then touched his forehead in a gesture of deep respect. "Then we are in your debt, Mara of Earth. The Calic Fifth is our most sacred tradition, older than the Empire itself, dating back to when we were still tribal warriors fighting for survival on our homeworld." He turned to address the assembled resistance leaders. "The human has invoked the ancient bond with my daughter. By our laws, she is now part of our fight, part of our family." He faced Mara again. "Though I suspect this wasn't what you intended when you picked up my daughter's broken staff." "No," Mara acknowledged, "but I don't regret it." A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber. Mekvex nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Captain Croft reports you have skills that proved valuable during the escape. What was your function before the Empire captured you?" "I'm an engineer. I specialized in life support systems for Earth's orbital habitats." Mekvex's expression brightened. "Engineering expertise is precisely what we need. Our environmental systems are overtaxed with the recent influx of refugees." He gestured to an older Vazrathi female with intricate tattoos marking her as a technical specialist. "Commander, Selk will show you our setup. Any improvements you can suggest would be most welcome." As Mara followed Commander Selk from the chamber, she heard Mekvex begin a debriefing with Thela and the other leaders. The last thing she saw before the door closed was Thela watching her leave, a complex expression on her scaled face. The environmental systems of Haven were a fascinating hybrid of technologies from various cultures. Vazrathi atmospheric processors worked alongside Terran-style water recyclers and Joruvian thermal regulators. Despite the ingenious integration, Mara quickly identified several inefficiencies. "Your heat exchange system is losing nearly 30% efficiency due to mineral buildup in the transfer tubes," she explained to Commander Selk after their inspection. "And the air filtration units are working harder than necessary because the intake manifolds are misaligned." Selk's eyes narrowed. "Can you fix these issues?" "With the right tools and some help." "Absolutely. You'll have both." For the next 3 days, Mara threw herself into improving Haven's life support systems. The work was challenging and deeply satisfying after months of mindless maintenance tasks on the Imperial Station. The Vazrathi engineers assigned to assist her were initially skeptical of her suggestions, but quickly grew to respect her expertise. On the 4th day, as Mara was calibrating a newly installed filtration array, she felt a now familiar tingling in her palm. Turning, she found Thela watching her from the entrance to the engineering bay. "Your father's engineers tell me you've increased system efficiency by 22%, Thela said, approaching. "They're impressed." Mara shrugged. "It's what I'm trained to do." "How are you settling back in?" "Still adjusting. Thela hesitated. The time in Imperial custody changed me. And now there's our bond. She touched her own palm unconsciously. Have you noticed the effects? Mara nodded. I can sense when you're nearby. And sometimes I know things I shouldn't. Like yesterday, I found myself understanding Vazrethi engineering notations I've never seen before. The knowledge transfer goes both ways, Thela admitted. I've started dreaming of your Earth. Oceans larger than anything on our worlds. Cities of impossible height, skies of purest blue. The bond is growing stronger, Mara realized. Is that normal? Unknown. As I said, the Caliph hasn't been invoked in generations. The ancient texts are vague about its manifestations. Thela paused. My father wishes to speak with you. The Resistance Council is meeting to discuss our next moves against the Empire. The council chamber was more crowded than before. Representatives from various resistance cells had arrived, bringing reports from throughout the sector. Mara noticed that many wore weapons that resembled the broken staff she had picked up. Apparently, the style was traditional among Vazrethi warriors. Mekvex greeted her warmly. Your work on our environmental systems has not gone unnoticed, Mara of Earth. Already our medical facilities report decreased respiratory complaints. Happy to help, Mara replied, taking the seat indicated beside Thela. Though I'm not sure what I can contribute to military planning. Perhaps more than you realize, Mekvex said cryptically before addressing the assembled council. 3 days ago, our operatives intercepted Imperial communications, indicating a major offensive against suspected resistance strongholds. The Emperor himself is overseeing the operation from the Imperial flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Holographic displays activated, showing the movements of Imperial fleet elements. They're searching in the wrong sector, noted a scared Jeruvian commander. Haven remains undetected. For now, Mekvex agreed. But this offensive has a secondary purpose beyond hunting our bases. The Emperor is traveling to the sacred temple on Vazra Prime for the Ascension ceremony next month. It will be his first public appearance in years. Excited murmurs spread through the chamber. Mara leaned toward Thela. What's the significance? The Ascension ceremony happens once every 20 cycles, Thela explained quietly. The Emperor reaffirms his divine right to rule by performing ancient rituals before the high priests and representatives from every world in the Empire. It's the only time he leaves the Imperial citadel and appears before the common people. Mekvex continued, This presents us with an unprecedented opportunity. Our intelligence suggests that the Emperor is increasingly concerned about the Caliph invoked between Thela and the human. He sees it as a challenge to his authority, as the ancient laws predate and supersede Imperial decree. He gestured to Mara. We believe this concern is what prompted his decision to personally lead the offensive and attend the Ascension ceremony. He needs to reassert his divine authority in the face of this symbolic challenge. Mara shifted uncomfortably as all eyes turned to her. I didn't mean to challenge anyone's authority. I just wanted to save Thela. Intention is irrelevant, said an elderly Vazrethi priest who sat at Mekvex's right hand. The Caliph is a covenant from our pre-imperial past, when our society was governed by sacred bonds rather than imperial decree. By invoking it, you have, whether knowingly or not, created a symbolic alternative to imperial authority. Mekvex nodded, which gives us an opportunity to strike at the heart of the Empire's legitimacy. I propose we use the Ascension ceremony to publicly challenge the Emperor's interpretation of our ancient laws. The council erupted in heated debate. Some argued for a direct military strike during the ceremony, while others advocated for a more symbolic approach. Throughout the discussion, Mara noticed Thela growing increasingly tense beside her. Finally, Thela stood. Father, the council speaks of symbols and opportunities, but what of the bond itself? Mara didn't ask for this connection to our struggle. Have we considered what she wants? Mekvex's expression softened. You're right, daughter. He turned to Mara. The Caliph gives you a voice in this decision. What are your thoughts? Mara considered carefully before speaking. On Earth, we have a saying, "With great power comes great responsibility." I didn't ask for this bond, but now that I have it, I can't ignore its implications. She looked around the chamber. I've seen how the Empire treats those under its control. If our bond symbolizes an alternative to that oppression, I'm willing to use it, but not for a military strike that would cost innocent lives. What do you propose? Mekvex asked. You said the Emperor fears the bond because it represents ancient laws that predate his authority. Why not use that? Challenge him on his own terms, through the sacred traditions he claims to